Hey, good morning, everybody. Today on this live, we're going to be talking about how to value what it is that you do so that you can price your services and ask for money with ease. Now, I decided to come to you live today because, well, it was just easier, to be honest with you. Week before last, I hosted an event in Toronto called Magnify Your Money, Mastering Sales from the Inside Out. It was an amazing event and retreat. We had some great entrepreneurs show up, and we talked everything sales. And if you've been following my channel for any length of time now, you know that I have really been diving into all things sales, because sales is really the key to your creating financial freedom. If you aren't selling, you aren't making money. If you're not selling, you're not doing the work you're meant to do in the world. If you're not selling, the people you need to help and benefit with your work aren't receiving it. Yet so many entrepreneurs hesitate on selling because it's uncomfortable, because they don't want to ask for money, because they're afraid of rejection, a whole bunch of things. And so I decided to help my clients and a few other people with that. And so we had a 2-day retreat. And we talked about everything. We talked about nonverbal communication, body language, building rapport, beliefs about sales, beliefs about money. We had some exercises that were done to change beliefs to help people get comfortable building rapport. And we did some exercises too where people had to go out and actually make a sale while they were at our event. So it was quite an adventure. But there was one exercise that I did with everybody that one of my participants said to me, like, this was the most valuable thing that she had for that day. And so I thought what I would do, and I just want to see if I can pull this up here. So you'll have to pardon me because I am trying to like man the camera myself today, as well as tech. Oops. I don't know if that's working. Okay. To man all the tech, I'm not sure if you can hear me. I see somebody's watching right now. So if you can tell me if you can hear me when I've muted myself, that would be great. So what I just wanted to have a view at all the at the chat and see what's going on. So yeah, like I said, I'm manning the tech, and oops, and I'm not very good at it. So I'm going to be trying to man the tech, check your questions, and if I can't answer your questions live, then I'm going to make sure that I come back and answer them afterwards. So if you have questions, put them into the chat and I will come back to them. And if you are watching and you can hear me, that'd be really great if you could let me know so that I know that I've done the sound thing right. That would be really helpful. Anyway, so we were talking about this exercise that I did when I was at my event in Toronto. And one of the participants said this was so valuable because it really helped her to be able to truly understand the value of what it was she does for her clients and how she helps them to create incredible results in their lives. And a lot of times when we are working with our clients, we get so afraid to put our pricing out there because we just think, like, is it worth it? Are they going to get the result that we want? What if they don't? And so many entrepreneurs, and I see this happen all the time, when they set their pricing, especially if they're new, they start to think in terms of hourly, or can I really charge that much? Like, can I charge that much? Will somebody pay me that much? And what they're doing in that moment is they are thinking about setting their pricing from a perspective of salary. They're not thinking about setting their pricing in a perspective of their business, and that their business needs to make profit, and that their business has a lot of expenses it needs to cover, and that the entrepreneur's salary is just one of them. And so that's why when we do these exercises and we can help people see just how far reaching the impact is of what it is they do, it really helps them to get a lot more firm in their pricing. And there's a lot of things we can do as well. Like, one of the things I like to help people do is actually price out their programs. I think I have a handout that can help you do that. I can't think of it off the top of my head. If I can find the link to it, I'll put it in the show notes below, and you can come back and find it afterwards. But it really helps you price and map out your program so that you can know what it actually costs you. Like, that's one of the first things you need to do, because a lot of times we don't actually think about how much of my time's involved, not just with the client, but around the client, or preparing for the client, or driving to the client, or paying somebody else to manage the client. And even if you're not paying somebody else to manage your client, it's really, you want to make sure that you factor that in, because assuming you're going to grow and be successful, there's going to be a time where you do pay somebody to do that. And here's the thing. Paying somebody to do it is actually cheaper than you doing it yourself, because whatever time you're doing administrative work or client service work versus like the actual fulfillment of your product or service, then that's time you're not selling or serving another client, and it actually costs you a lot more money. So you want to actually find out what all that time is to help you price it. Now, one of the exercises that we did was a little more esoteric and energetic. Knowing what those costs are a big deal to helping you get your pricing straight. But actually truly knowing what that value is will help you come from a more confident perspective to not just cover your costs, but to really think about the value of what you offer. And before I get into the exercise, I have a PowerPoint here that I'm going to go through with you on. Some of you may have seen this before, and maybe some of you haven't. So I'm just going to go into that and show you what it is. I do want to talk about this concept of charging what you're worth. However, I used to use that like all the time, like you got to charge what you're worth. And I don't like using that expression anymore because I find it really negative. Because like, what are you worth? Like, what's anybody worth? We're human beings. We are priceless. I mean, our value is priceless. However, what we want to charge is what the value of our service to our client is worth, not necessarily what any one particular client may get out of it, because some people don't implement, some people don't do the work, some people take something and then they stop. You want to be thinking about a client that is an ideal client that is going to take what you do with them and implement it throughout their whole life, and whatever that is, but that they're going to use it to the maximum. They're going to be a good client. They're going to have a result. You want to assume it's positive. One of our attendees said, well, 50% of people don't take action. Like, what should I, how do I base my pricing on that? Well, you can't, because you don't know who's going to take action and who's not. So you want to assume that everybody you work with is going to be successful and base your pricing on that. What people choose to do with the services you provide them is up to them. You cannot control that. But what you do know is how much value they'll get if they follow your service, follow your program, implement the way you said they should implement. Even if that's a luxury service or a practical service or a business service or a holistic service, whatever that is, you want to assume that the people are going to be successful. So I'm going to show you a way that an exercise that we went through at our retreat. If you're just joining us now, it's Nafissa Shireen. I had a retreat in Toronto a couple of weeks ago, teaching my clients how to master sales from the inside out. And this is one of the exercises that one of my clients said was the most helpful for her. So let's dive in. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. And we are going to go on to this here. Okay, so this is just a little presentation that I have for you here. All right, so when we think about working with a client, many of us are just thinking about the immediate result. What are we able to create for our client in that moment? So let's just say you are a health coach. You might think that, well, your results are that you are going to help somebody lose 10 pounds. That's the result that you're promising them. Myself, as a business coach or success coach, I help entrepreneurs to make a quantum leap in their income. I help them to add 6 figures to their income. That is an immediate result. If you're a relationship coach, you might help somebody find their perfect mate, or you might help them make a decision to leave a toxic relationship, or you might help them heal and really empower the current relationship they're in. That's the result that you create. And a lot of times, people will look at that result and think, well, that's what I'm charging for, right? So let's just take my services, for example. So if I help somebody add 6 figures to their income this year, what's that worth, right? It's worth at least 6 figures. Now, I don't charge that, but it's worth at least 6 figures because they can create that. If you're helping somebody lose 10 pounds, what's that worth to them? And that can have a lot of value when we actually really look from that aspect to see like what is happening for this person. Like when you, if their marriage is saved, if you're a relationship coach, there's a lot of value to that. And the problem is that's where people stop. that is where they stop. And they might be able to come up with a price, but the confidence isn't necessarily built up in what it is they are looking for. So let's go back and have a look at what we did to help people get really clear on this. And this is basically going to be a slide presentation for the rest of this till the end. And we'll go through this. So now we look at this immediate result, and then we want to take it a little bit further, and we want to think, well, if somebody gets this result, what are the financial benefits to them for creating this result in their business or their life or their relationship? I'm going to reverse this a little bit if you're a health coach, and so just bear with me for a second, but we'll just go with it for now. So taking, for example, let's just say I help somebody learn how to add $100,000 to their income. Well, that's a great result, but that's not the end of the financial result that they're going to create in their life. If they've learned how to add six figures to their income, they can never unlearn that. That means they can do it again and again and again. And even if they only added 100 grand a year, every year, only once in a year, you add that up over 25 years, that's a major financial result for them. Right? I mean, over 10 years, $100,000 is they've added $1 million to their income. If they add $100,000 more than once, I've had clients that have enrolled several multi six figure clients. That's how one of my clients recently got to, multiple seven figures in her business. That is an incredible result. And so you want to be thinking of, okay, if they get this immediate result, I'm going to assume that my clients are successful, they're going to implement, and they're going to do everything that I help them with on a long-term basis. What is the far-reaching financial impact of that result? So in the case of somebody adding $100,000 a year to their income, well, you multiply that over 10 years, that could be $1 million. Are they able to start a wealth account? Are they able to pay off debt? We start to look at other things besides just the immediate result. We start looking at all different ways. Now, if let's say you're a relationship coach and you're working with an entrepreneurial couple who have a lot at stake and the result is they heal their relationship, what else happens? Well, financially, the cost of not breaking apart that relationship is pretty huge, right? I think we all know that the cost of divorce is very expensive. So this creates a financial stability for them. And if they're aligned as a couple, maybe they start making other decisions together and they're able to grow their wealth. So we want to look at everything from this aspect here of how this result has actually helped them become more financially sound, just beyond the result that you created for them. Now, let's just say you are not working in a business where you're coaching people. Let's say perhaps that you are a photographer. Well, your result are amazing pictures for people, right? Like if you're working with entrepreneurs or talent, you're giving them incredible pictures. But what's that financial result they're getting? Well, if somebody's going out there and using their pictures in all their branding and they're getting more clients, they now have a different result besides the pictures. So you want to expand this out a little bit. Okay, so once you figured out what the far-reaching financial impact of this is, you want to then go to the next circle, which is once they have this result and their finances are improving, how does this improve their health and well-being? Wellness and health coaches, we're going to back up in a moment. But think about this for a moment. Now somebody is, let's just say, we'll go back to my example. They've learned how to add six figures to their income. And let's just assume they're only adding six figures once a year. They're not doing it multiple times a year. If they are, it's even bigger. But let's just go with once a year. They are paying off debt. They are releasing stress in their life, right? They're saving money. They're building wealth. So their health and well-being, well, what happens? Well, maybe they can afford better insurance, or they can afford alternate health care now. They don't have to go into a system. They can make choices. They will have reduced stress because they're not freaking out about money, and that will affect their health and well-being. You want to be thinking about all these different ways that this result that's created the financial impact is now affecting their health and well-being. For that relationship coach, well, now that the relationship is healed, their finances are solid, well, they're going to have the same health and well-being impact as well. And also, perhaps people can now afford something like a personal trainer or hiring a nutritionist, right? Like, so somebody who increases their income can afford to hire a health and well-being coach, right? Because they are now feeling better about themselves. So if you are a wellness coach, I do want to talk to you about the fact that we would we would reverse in your impact circles. You would do this a little bit different. You would have your result, which would be your first thing, the losing 10 pounds or getting their gut health straight, or helping them deal with allergies, whatever that is. You're going to start there, and then you'll go to their broader health and well-being. So from that immediate result, what happens in their broader health and well-being, and then you'll go to financial. So that's where we would just flip it around if you're a health coach. So I just want you to know that, because it's kind of like, you might think the health and well-being is your immediate result, but it's not. Your immediate result is that one thing you're helping them with, and then you want to look at their whole bigger picture. And then how does this now affect their finances, right? Are they more confident to go speaking? Are they more confident to have pictures taken and put themselves out there? Are they more confident speaking up in meetings if they work in corporate, or asking for a raise because they're feeling healthier? You can't underestimate just how much of a financial impact it has on somebody to be healthier, and all the things they do in outreach. And of course, other things, their insurance costs might come down, or they might not need medication. So you want to be thinking about as this circle starts to grow out. Then the next circle we want to look at is, how do their relationships improve? How do they start relating to people differently when they're feeling financially sound, when they're feeling so much physically and emotionally better? How are their relationships working? Right? Your little result, that one result that you had in the middle, now you see how much smaller that's going. um, I'm just going to come on camera for a second. You see how small that result is, like, compared to it? Like, I mean, we're thinking, okay, this is the result that we're charging for, and suddenly it's really small compared to this ripple effect that's being created for the people that we are working with and helping, because it's not just one thing. We are helping them grow and expand in all different areas of their life, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. And if you heal one area of your life, you're going to help and heal other areas of your life as well. And so now we start to go into how relationships are affected. Now, this same chart can be used if you work in corporate as well, like if your clients are corporate. I'm just going to quickly go back to this chart here for you to look at it, because we want to think about the fact, and I do want to back up here, because if you work with corporations, then you want to look at, okay, what's the result the corporation is going to have from working with you and implementing the service? Obviously, what are the financial results? Is it loss of, stopping losses or increasing income? Health and well-being goes a couple of ways. It's the health and well-being of the organization. How healthy is this organization now that it has all of this in place, as well as the interpersonal relationships among their staff. Like, can they put in wellness programs? Are they reducing sick days? All of that. And then we go to relationships, and again, that has to do with inter-company relationships, relationships with suppliers and vendors. So you can actually still use this format if you are not dealing with individuals. So I just wanted to back up with that a bit. But let's get back to relationships now for entrepreneurs. This is, as we start to expand the circle, we start to see how your services are impacting people, from the result to the financial to the well-being to the relationships. So taking the example of one of my clients that, let's say, adds 6 figures to their income, they now know how to do this. They're adding this every year. They're being healthier. And now how are they showing up in relationships? Well, perhaps they are now relating to their family better, because they're not stressed out about money all the time, because they're feeling better. They can stop thinking about work all the time, because they know the money's coming in. They can have better relationships. They can have more positive conversations. I mean, how many of you here, especially if the ladies are watching, sometimes have to explain to your husband, like, why the money is not matching how hard you're working? I think we've all had that conversation, right? Imagine not having that conversation anymore because you're getting that extra money in. Now, if you're that dating coach, right, or that relationship coach, when this relationship is healed, how are their other relationships being affected, right? As all these other ripple effects are being healed in their life, how are their other relationships being affected with their children, with their friends, with their workmates, with their clients? So again, thinking about that ripple. And then finally, we want to think about then what happens for them with their purpose and their greater purpose in life. So it just keeps going. One of my clients at my retreat realized that some of the clients she has helped with certain things, once they were able to get all these other ripples in place, they suddenly had a whole bunch more time where they were able to take on passion projects, community engagement projects. Someone else was able to take on another project or role where it had a multiple five-figure impact to that particular person. And, she realized, like, wow, this little job that I did had so much ripple effect for this one person, that suddenly she realized that, yeah, pricing at that result is thinking small. We want to be thinking about this whole level of how our services reach out. Now, obviously, there's you can't fully charge 100% what that whole circle is worth. Like I even said, if somebody adds $100,000 to their income in a year, they've more than what would that be worth to them? Sure, it's worth 100 grand. Like I said, I don't charge that, but it would be worth that. And if I were to go at that full impact circle, what would that be? $1 million, $2 million? Right? It's hard to know what that is. However, when we can get really clear on understanding what that ripple effect is, when we start looking at pricing the result of our service, we start to build a lot more confidence and we can stop doubting our fees. Because one of the things that I see happen so many times is I will work with entrepreneurs, they will know what their service is worth, and they get in that sales conversation. And when it comes time to ask for the money, they drop their price. So if it's a $10,000 service, they'll say $7,500 or maybe $5,000, or they might knock a little bit off, because in that moment they're so uncomfortable because all they're thinking about is that immediate result and that person, and will they say yes or will they say no? And when an entrepreneur can really own the impacts of what happens for those results that they create, um, they'll know what the right pricing is for their service. And more importantly, as they have that in mind, when they go to ask for the money at the end of the sale, they don't change their pricing on the spot. Because how many of you have done that? Have you done? I've done that. Like, I've gotten to the end of the sales call, and I was gonna charge something, and I didn't. I charged way less. And you know what happens when you charge way less than what you should be charging is you don't show up as fully as you could with that client. It doesn't feel good. You feel ripped off. You maybe don't create the result to the level that you want it to. And that's all happening energetically. And that ripple effect, yeah, it happens, but not to the same degree as if you show up 100% and engaged. And so that's why you want to make sure that you're not dropping your price just because you're scared when it comes to the money piece of the sales conversation. So I hope this little demonstration today helped you to really start thinking about the work you do in a different way. And I'm going to encourage you to take this away as homework, draw those circles out, and actually write it, right? Like, don't just say results, financial, health, well-being, just write down results. What are the results I help people do? Then in that financial circle, write down every possible bit of financial benefit your ideal client who implements will get from creating the results from working with you. And then move on to the health and well-being circle. And again, write down everything. Don't just say it in your head, like write it down, because when you write, you create a kinesthetic experience for yourself, and writing creates thinking. Writing creates your ability to connect to that thought. So write it down in your own handwriting. Don't type it out. And just keep doing the circles. So you can go back in this video and look at what those circles are, do that, and then come back and leave me a comment and tell me how that's changed, how you feel about the work that you do. And if any big ahas came up, like that one client of mine who suddenly realized, I wasn't even thinking about all these other things these people were able to create because of the result that I did. But she knew it was there, she just hadn't made the connection. So imagine making that connection for yourself. If any ahas come up, let me know. I will come back and engage with you, and we will be back next week with a regular one of our episodes. I believe next week we are going to be looking at everything to do with refunds, a new video on refunds. I know that's been a popular one, so I've got another one coming up for you to help you handle it when somebody wants their money back. What do you do? Because that kind of sucks, right? All right, we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.